Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the FTX Crypto Cup Miami. It is the third round of action, and if you need a reminder on the format, there are 8 players. They all play against each other one time, but in their mini matches, they play 4 rapid games. If you win the match during the rapid portion, you gain 3 points for the standings. If then you have to play a Blitz or Armageddon playoff, it is 2 points to the winner, 1 point to the loser, and the prize is split. There's $7,500 up for grabs during one of these. Now, going into round number 3, Magnus Carlsen and Pragnanan Ramesh both have a perfect score. And by perfect score, I mean they've won 2 mini matches in the rapid portion. Today, we continue a couple of different storylines. Number 1, we continue the storyline of Hans Niemann and fascinating trash talk. I will show you, well, not trash talk, but, you know, sound bites. I will show you how Magnus Carlsen handles playing against the London Opening, and I will show you everything in between as well. Now, this matchup between Anish Giri and Alireza Firouzja was super fun, very exciting, and this is one of their rapid games. It was a Nimso from Anish. It was this Bishop D2 kind of idea by Alireza, and the point of this is to play A3, and if they take, obviously you're not going to take with the pawn. That is why you put the bishop on the D2 square. You're going to take it with the bishop, which is why Black is like, I'm not going to let you get what you want, and goes back. Well, now Alireza plays some normal moves, and you will notice that Alireza hasn't castled yet, right? He's sort of just, he's delaying his castling a little bit. He can castle this way, he can castle this way, and here he chooses not to castle at all. That is why he did all of this and targeted this pawn, so he can go G4. All right, that's how you know it's going to be exciting. Now, if Black takes, he is going to get checked, and then the G file is going to be open, and most likely this is just going to be a devastating attack. So, instead of doing that, he does not indulge, he blocks this bishop. So, H4, sacrificing this pawn, and now H5. Alireza is just full steam ahead. Now, in this position, your knight is hanging, right? What do? Well, it's not always you get to play moves like this. You get to take a hit of the Bon Cloud and play king to E2. I'm not joking. He actually did that. The king is saved there, and Rook G1 is on the way. Now, Anish understands that to fight back against this, he's going to have to attack the middle, which he's doing. But C5 is apparently like a devastatingly bad move. Like, apparently here, you know, the evaluation is like +2.5 for white, but it's not really clear why. The engine here shows knight d1 as one of the top engine moves to attack the bishop, but beyond that, I don't really understand. I mean, I suppose it's to put the bishop there and to attack the queen. Another one of the moves that it gives is rook g2, which I can only imagine is intending to just double up here. Alireza plays rook h4, which is the most aggressive move, but now after knight e5, rook f4, Black is actually getting to more or less okay territory. We have knight b5, knight into c4, and here the best move after knight takes d2 and queen takes d2 is you can see like the worst is already behind us. I think here, or maybe, yeah, in this position, white had to play the move knight back to c3. This was the last remaining attempt from Firouzja to continue to maintain an advantage. And then after Black plays knight b6 defending, white has to play king to e1. Like, again, if you play knight c3 and king e1, you should be stopped and you should be wanded, and they should see if you have electronic devices on you. Because what? So instead of that, you know, Firouzja plays like a human being, and Anish gets back into the game. Anish consolidates. He now gives a check. The knight is going to be, you know, falling. And now it's actually Anish who is winning the game. We have takes, rook e4, all right? And here Firouzja finds rook takes e5, sacrificing in exchange, various tactical things going on in the position. Bishop c4 hitting this. Now Black has the absolutely exceptional move, bishop d4. Can't be taken because of this. Giri plays it safe though, and this allows Firouzja a little bit of time. And now look at this, rook takes g6, pin here. If queen g6, then queen e5. And the king is somehow just safe through all this. King's like, y'all fight. You got this, guys. Yeah, you guys got this. Everybody defend me. All right. Bishop back to f8, and yeah, I mean, the engine gives a slight advantage to Black, but Black is very passive, and you know, Black can even win a pawn with check. It's not going to be good enough because bishop c2, knight f6, queen h7 is on the way, and it's sort of like an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. Now we're in an endgame, and now Black just doesn't have the capability of breaking out anymore, and after a little bit more time, the players ultimately ended up making a draw. which is sort of fitting, you know? One side was winning, the other side was winning, and this was actually the story of the match. They made 6 draws. It went to an Armageddon game, which means that Alireza starts with more time, Anish has less time, and draw odds. So if the game ends in a draw, Anish wins the... I thought somebody was at the door. Anish actually wins this matchup, and he wins the day. We have a Spanish. This is a very popular line of the Spanish. It's a very closed variation, and I think Alireza is just going to rely on the fact that he just gets a little bit more time. Also, the quality of games in Armageddons is generally very bad because it's a totally different format. There's no bonus time. F4. Alireza gets aggressive early, removes this, and just continues to attack. He's got all this brewing. Knight can always get to c4, getting to these 2 squares. Knight h6, knight g7 on the way. It's really up to Anish to try to guard the position, as we see Alireza just building up all the forces. It's crazy the position is 0-0-0. I guess it's because black is up a pawn, but like visually this looks very scary, right? The attack is continuing. Alireza is looking for a way forward, but Anish is doing a good job. Anish is defending himself. He's not letting him get overwhelmed. There was a pin there, so there was no knight e6. Now Anish is 2 pawns up. But there's rook f5. Now Anish is only 1 pawn up. And Alireza pressured, and just waiting for something to happen, and Anish just blunders. Just hangs rook f6. I mean, here the evaluation was in white's favor, despite being a pawn down, but it was just sort of vague pressure. But Anish plays rook b8 and just blunders a pawn, and that's what happens in Armageddons because you just don't have a lot of time. Now pawns are equal, but the position is not equal. And Alireza... takes him a little bit of time to convert this, but after 57 moves, he does, with checkmate coming, and he wins. He gets himself 2 points. Anish on the board, though. Anish was scoreless in the first 2 days. Now Anish has 1 point. Next matchup is this matchup, very fun matchup between Hans Niemann and Pragnananda Rameshbabu, the 2 youngest players in the event. Before today started, Hans said on Twitter that he would be declining all interviews today, and he will let the chess speak for itself. Now, that was obviously Hans just memeing on himself. That was not Hans trying to give attitude. That was him joking about the interview that he gave day earlier. Now, I'm loving what I'm seeing from Hans. I think the chess world does need kind of like a Conor McGregor. I tweeted about this. It would be excellent if the chess world had like a villain, you know, because everybody's so polite and nice to each other. You know, I'm not talking like we have to go to levels like Nick Kyrgios yelling at his team the whole time or his box the whole time and, you know, the stuff that Conor McGregor's gotten himself into outside of the octagon. But, like, what are people mad about? But you know what? Even the people that are mad about how Hans behaves, you're still going to watch because you're going to cheer for him to lose, right? I don't care how Hans does. Like, if Hans wins, that's great. Like, awesome. He's 2,700. You know, he's beating some top guys. That's just my personal opinion. We need guys like Hans. That's just being honest. Some of you don't agree, but you're still going to watch because you're going to cheer for him to lose. And in either way, you are going to watch, right? Like I posted on Twitter, some people were like, Hans is an idiot. I was like, for what? Like, he was rude to the interviewer. What? Bro, relax. Anyway, Hans says the chess is going to speak for itself, right? So let's see how he handles his first game against Pragnananda. Prague's struggling here to develop a little bit. You know, White has a nice development scheme going on, and immediately starts cracking open the center. Look at Black's pieces. Black's got no development at all. Now, is Black worse? A little bit, but not like in a fatal way, unless he does something really bad. But look at this position. I mean, Hans has done everything right here. He's really letting the chess speak for itself. He wins a pawn. All right, he goes forward. He's going to try to win a second pawn. Now we have an endgame of same color bishop. It's very important. The bishops are on the same color. If it was opposite colored bishops, the drawing chances would be much higher. Now, Hans gliding forward like a hot knife through butter, consolidating, constantly using pawn breaks to make the position weaker and weaker. Notice how Hans has 5 pawns on light squares? Means that the enemy bishop can't touch them. But Black does not have that, right? Bishop d2, king e1, rook c5, rook c4. Hans gonna use the pawns perfectly. 2 pawns up now. Folks, just like yesterday, Hans Niemann begins with a game where I wouldn't be shocked if his accuracy was in the 95, 97 range. Hans plays a great game, and at the end of it, transforms it into a winning pawn endgame. He sacrifices a bishop, calculating this out to a winning endgame. It's a winning endgame. Because Black has to go here, and White has a 3-pawn attack. Look at the way Hans does this. This is incredible. It just brings his king, and there's nothing. There's king c6. And by the time Prague gets back, there's king b7. There's also b6, cutting off this. And he's going to lose this race by 1 tempo. Hans really let the chess speak for itself. I'm not going to lie. That was a beautiful game. Hans is up 1-0. Wow. All right. Prague has to strike back. Let's see if he's going to be able to do so. So we have a Queen's Gambit declined. This is the Eric Rosen variation. Eric Rosen plays like this. Like here, Black usually plays Bishop d6. But in our I Am Not a GMSP Chess Championship match, Eric let me play Queen f3 and damage his pawn structure like this. And I thought I would be a happy camper. But I'm trash at chess. Let's see how Prague handles this. Well, he puts his knight on the f4 square. Like, not yet, but he is going to do this, right? He plays rook e1 and knight f4. Now, a lot of people are wondering, how is Hans ever going to get this light-squared bishop out? I was wondering the same thing. Obviously, this setup by Hans is he's not going to play for a win with black. He's playing for a win with white. He's going to try to hold with black. Notice how Prague now walks his king out of the center, gets his bishop in the middle, and he's just basically waiting to see like where his opportunity is going to arise. He has a nice setup here. He's trying to dance with the knights. Okay. Finally, Hans takes. Now, the position was already getting almost unguardable because once these pawns get traded, the queen side will probably collapse. And after this exchange finally happens, Prague just continues to reroute, continues to control the black position, and there's just no way. There's no way to defend here. And he infiltrates on the A file, and yeah, you know what? This is a matchup of two people who are really letting the chess speak for itself, because look at Prague go. He wins the c6 pawn, f6 pawn, f5 pawn, d5 pawn, and he's probably going to win some of the other pawns too, but for now he's just going to win a bishop. Dust settles on move 56, and oh my gosh. Prague walked out, and no, I'm just kidding. Prague probably gave a totally normal interview. They probably were like, oh, what are your thoughts? He was like, yeah, it was, a good game. I played well. So, I like this matchup. All right, two youngsters throwing hands. Although, to be honest, I think if they actually threw hands, I think I would give the advantage to Hans there. He's a bigger guy. Weight class is not the same, yeah, so they're metaphorically throwing hands on the chessboard, right? Like all good chess players do. It's 1-1. They drew their next game, and we go to the fourth and final rapid game. Will Hans change it up? Because obviously, last time it did not work. No. All right, this is a shock. I gotta tell you, because I don't know why Hans played the system 2 times. Like, again, I'm not a coach. I'm not at that level of the players. But to me, this system just seems really depressing with black. Like, maybe I just don't understand something. This time, Prague plays totally differently. He doesn't play h4. He plays like this. So he just takes a totally different approach, right? Like, again, this system is absolutely not the way I would play chess. But, what about the bishop? But Hans seems to think he's going to have sufficient counterplay on other sides of the board. All right, let's do it. Your video did not freeze. I just had to clear my throat and to not do it into the microphone. I muted the microphone. Now, we have bishops versus knights. All right, it's horses versus pointed hats. There's nothing here. I mean, the pawn structure of black is not great, and Prague doesn't handle this position perfectly. Like, he should have gone here, for example, but it still seems incredibly challenging to play this with black. All right, so knight back to d1. Now we're attacking the c4 pawn. Bishop back to f7, but now we very calmly take on f5. Now Prague is a pawn up. But there's counterplay, all right? You got to deal with counterplay. Knight h6, bishop e6, f5. Okay, bishop here. Knight back, knight goes back to where it was. Bishop continues to dance. And actually here, believe it or not, Stockfish likes black's position. It thinks that Hans has sufficient counterplay. And this is probably why, I don't understand the system at all. And this is why the players play the system. Now here, I think Prague misses a win. Prague has knight f7 here. I don't exactly understand. For example, if rook to d7, rook to e2, and then after rook takes f7, there's just this trade, and apparently white is just winning here. This is just a winning endgame. Instead of that, we get it like this, and then rook d4, rook c1, and I mean, it's just an equal endgame. But it's not very easy to play because these two pawns are very soft, and the 3 here are going to get moving, right? So that's how Prague is going to try to win. Prague ends up taking on c4 with check, defending his pawns, giving up his b2 pawn, and just focusing on that side of the board. All right, king g3, h4. I told you it's what Prague is doing. G5. That knight on g8 hitting the f6 pawn. King goes to g4 and h5. Prague has forgotten about everything else. There's a little rectangle on this board that he is focused on right now, and he's just trying to move that way. No draw. Knight back to f6. Nice idea. If bishop f6, this pawn just gets through, right? So king d6. Knight e8 check. Knight back to f6. Knight e4 check. Knight back to f2. We're dancing, all right? Rook g2. Check. Here. Knight e4. Oh. Can't take because of this. So this endgame, after rook takes d2, is apparently a draw. Hans doesn't go for it. He keeps the rook on the board, but this allows white to cut off the rook going back to g1, and that's just game. The pawns get through. And 64 moves. Prague gets the job done for a second time with white. Hans has still yet to score. He's lost 3 matches in rapid. And like I said earlier, I like what Hans is doing. I like how he's abrasive. I like whatever, edgy. I don't know what the right word is. But here's the thing: when you act like that, people are gonna salivate when you lose. Like, people love when I lose. Oh my gosh. I mean, I know you guys like when I win, but the haters, oh, they love when I lose. I mean, they love when Hikaru loses, right? Like, it's the same thing. It's like, that's when the people are empowered because they're like, ha! But none of these people would play in competitive settings. So the dangerous thing for Hans is that when he talks the talk, right? So far, he's been backing it up. He's getting up to 2690 classical. But he's got to deal with all this, people are going to talk a lot of smack now because they're like, oh, that's how you want to be. People who are like rated like 900. They you know what? I'm not even gonna gatekeep rating. Even people who are 2400 are probably like, oh yeah, Hans talking bro. Why? But like I said, he's doing it right because hate him or love him, you're gonna watch because you're cheering for one result, one way or the other. The next matchup I have for you, by the way, Prague is still undefeated. Prague is 9 out of 9. Sick. Jan Krzysztof Duda versus Lequang Liem. Liem also has not won a match yet. This game was super fun. It was in Italian, and you would think it's very calm and easy, but this system with bishop g5 is very provocative because black is going to play h6, and black might at some point play g5. And we saw this system played with a5 bishop back to a7 between Abdusaturov and Pentala Harikrishna in the Olympiad. Did you remember that? No. Don't lie to yourself. Of course you didn't. In that game, that was the only game that Abdusaturov lost in the Olympiad, and he lost in like 25 moves. g5. Knight back to h7, h5, g4. I told you, this system is terrifying for white. You cannot play this system offhand. Knight to e7, knight to g6. It seems like all of the black pieces are just going to the king side. Like, look, he takes, he goes back, look at Duda. He's just taking everything in the middle of the board. Doesn't even matter because black is winning. Black is going to attack. Now, here Liem had to find queen g5. Which on its own is not the very, it's not a difficult move, but he had to see bishop d6 and now queen f6, which I think he missed. I think he only saw the attack on the rook and was like, well, if I move, that's not very good because white now gets time to attack me. He plays more passively, and because of that, Duda just sacrifices, and Duda has 4 extra pawns here. 4 for 1 piece. Now, the position is still very complicated. Liem tries to get a pawn back. He does succeed in the future. He does take that pawn. Now white is only up 3 pawns for the piece. So it's equal. It's very balanced. Queen takes b7. Rook b6, kind of trapping the queen in there and taking on b2. We have knight f3. Knight g5. Nice. That knight was in the depths of hell over there and now comes out and trades off white's piece. Now, here's the thing about chess math, okay? The thing about chess math is that a bishop is worth, or a knight is worth 3 pawns, right? It's worth, so technically the position is balanced, but the second that the side with more pieces starts to trade, it's not 3 does not equal 3 anymore. When you are down a piece like a knight, you need as many pieces as possible to make up for the absence of that knight. When you start trading, you're going to feel it, all right? You're going to feel the fact that you're down material. Like, for example, when the queens get off the board, it gets even worse for white. Because now white doesn't have as many pieces. Black has 5 pieces playing, right? That's what I call chess math, all right? He came here for a chess recap. We get math too. Now, again, another trade. Look at the eval. It's now -3. So anytime you have piece for a couple of pawns, you want to start trading stuff. Because at the end of the day, do the math. You're going to have 1 piece left versus pawns. All right, you're gonna have like a fourth grader beating up preschoolers on a playground. I mean, it's that really shouldn't happen, but you know, it is happening. And remember my little thing I said yesterday? You got two guys side by side. One of them has a horse, the other one doesn't. I'm gonna be friends with the guy who has the horse. I don't know if he's gonna be friends with me, but that guy's a cooler guy. Liem has a horse. Now he trades everything. Liem played this game like super simple. Look at this, rook takes h3. Can't even go here because knight f4. This is what I said. At the end of the day, one guy is gonna have a horse. And this endgame is winning because white is not going to win this pawn. It's just not gonna happen. Here, here, here. By the time you get over here, that's it, easy. And that's what happens. Liem wins two very nice games early on. And it was close in the third game, but not close enough. That's it. I mean, Duda goes down. Liem is on the board with 3 points. And yeah, I think now, yeah, everyone's, Hans has yet to score. It's up to Hans now. Hans has to score and get on the board. So, last game. Did you skip ahead to Magnus? Terrible. Absolutely terrible. Now, the interesting thing about Magnus is that he played against Levon today, and Levon is always going to bring something interesting to the table. Like, he's always going to come up with something cool. So, Magnus, by the way, is trying to play the French again. Notice how he plays d4, e6. But we have knight f3, knight f6, bishop f4. Always interesting to see how Magnus is going to play against the London. And you can really doubt that he's going to play the main lines. He's always going to look for something, and he plays bishop e7, which is well, what happens if white just goes here? Well, the idea is knight h5. That's fascinating. He wants to get the bishop. Like, he wants this in the future. He just wants to get rid of the bishop. Just a different way of playing the London. And then maybe c5. You know, of course, black has to deal with this, but he'll just play h6. He'll never get mated. Bishop d3, maybe c5, queen b6, and black is just going to play with the bishop pair. Very interesting idea. Bishop e7, knight h5. I've seen this idea in a slightly different move order. Like, I've seen it, I think, with b6 and then knight h5. I've seen this before. And then I've seen after bishop g5, like f6, but that's very provocative. This is very provocative and frankly probably bad because of something like knight e5. Where the knight on h5 is hit. But yeah, bishop e7 is designed to prevent bishop g5, which is very interesting. So that's why we get h3, and now Magnus plays b5. What? What is this? Oh my goodness. e3 hits the bishop, hits the pawn with the bishop, a6, and for a long time the players were just developing around each other, right? So this is the way Magnus is going to play against the London. Playing very solid. And symmetrical structure, this is hitting this. So queen defends, a4, c4, bishop back to c2, and a little dance on the queen side. Now the queen side begins falling apart. b3, takes, b4, takes. Okay, what's going on? It's about equal. All right, but there's a lot of play here. Position just opened up, a lot of space for both players. Knight d4, f4, Levon getting aggressive. Knight, whoa! He sacrifices a knight. Takes, bishop takes, picks up a rook. So Levon has a rook and 2 pawns for 2 pieces. Very complicated position. He wants to like bulldoze Magnus with his pawns. I'm not sure how possible it's going to be. Rook a7, here's bishop c5, now we trade. Again, just like last game, chess math. Black has 2 pieces for the rook. So chess math says the more pieces you trade, the better it's going to be in the endgame. All right, knight back to c6, queen e3, counterattacking the rook goes to c2. This was one of the most complex games I've ever seen. All right? Hovering around zeros the whole time, which just means the engine doesn't really know what's going on. Here, apparently, this move is good. And if check, looks like the king is weak, but just goes to h2. This looks like mate, but it's not because the queen can slide over. So players were just dancing with their pieces for a while. And the lower that we get on time, the closer we're going to have rook c1, right? And Levon blunders a pawn. Levon tries to get the queens off. It's very important that Magnus does not trade queens. Like I said, trading pieces is good, but like a knight and a bishop against the rook are not going to win on their own, especially with not a lot of pawns on the board. They need that bonus. That bonus is the queen. Rook b4, bishop d5. But Levon starts making a comeback. Levon begins consolidating and playing quickly. And He's trying to like create counterplay at all costs, right? He's trying to make some counterplay, queen b2, king h2. He's looking for a queen trade. It's so easy to get tangled in the horses here. All right, knight f, look at this. This is terrifying. King h1. Is there a mate? All right, queen trade, bishop g2. I told you a queen trade would not win the game, but black runs out with the whole bank. He robs the bank. He gets g2, he gets h3. Those two pawns are going to be decisive. There's just nothing to be done. Magnus has too many pieces. Look at the coordination of black's position. It all marches forward together, and at some point that h-pawn might also come, but maybe not, all right? At some point, we're going to get knight e2, knight e3, or knight h4, knight f3, g2 is going to come in, and that is exactly why in this position, the king, surrounded by the entire squad of pieces, arrives, and white resigns because knight f3 is coming, g2 is coming, and there's just no way to protect against the invasion. So, very interesting, I have to say. Little passive setup against the London. Knight h5, this early idea. Now you know you can incorporate this into your London repertoire. b5, okay, we saw like this move as well, which is just not c5, not d5, but b5, because white has not played e3 yet. If white played e3, there would have been no b5, right? You would have just lost the pawn. So there's a lot of different setups in the London where even in the main line, like this setup, something like this, black plays for a very early knight h5. And if white is not careful, he's, they're going to lose the bishop, and then, they might have to play a position without the bishop pair. Not every single one is the same, but the way Magnus does it, very interesting. And after 3 days of action at the FTX Crypto Cup, Magnus, perfect, 9 out of 9. Pragnananda, perfect, 9 out of 9. When do they play each other, by the way? Do they play in round 4? No, they don't. They play in round... the last round? Wow, they play in the last round. Oh, that's going to be fun. Then it's Levon and Firouzja with 5 out of 9. It's Duda with 4, Liem with 3, Anish with 1, Hans with 0. And we will see what happens in the next few days. I'll see you in the next one. Get out of here.